All right. Hello to everyone out there in Zoom land, YouTube land, Facebook land, LinkedIn land, the whole social media network and landscape. I want to welcome you to today's segment of, let me get rid of this. Zoom land, YouTube land, Facebook land. It never ends, man. The whole social media network. It just never ends. That's why you need technicians. All right. So as you heard my echo, we want to welcome everyone out there in YouTube land, Facebook land, Zoom land, the whole social media landscape land to Momentum, a stewardship idea. My name is Curtis O. Robinson Sr. I'm the senior pastor at the Faith Church in Oakland, California, sitting right there on the corner of 2680 64th Avenue in Oakland, on the corner of 64th Avenue in Bancroft. So it's great to be here today on Momentum of Stewardship Idea. Of course, I go by Salt. My guy goes by the name of Pepper. And I want to introduce my co-host, actually the other host of this show, Elder Jeffrey Healy from the Westminster Presbyterian Church in Tiburon, California. Elder Healy, how are you today?
I am incredible. One quick question for you, Curtis. Why do you have a plexiglass, back when we used to go to church, why do you have plexiglass in front of the drummer? Is it because all the women love them so much or what?
Speaking of the women, no, because typically if you look at a church, that's where the mothers sit, the mother's board, like the elderly women. It's interesting. In a lot of churches, it's like that, but it's designed to kind of muffle the noise a little bit.
Okay.
So like Kevin, hey Kev, I don't know if you're out there looking, but we had a drummer named Kevin, man, and he would get so into it, sometimes he would stand up, right? But, and then, they be talking about, yeah, it's good, Pastor, but it's too loud. It's too loud. I shouldn't do that. Y'all forgive me.
Well, I have to tell you, some of the best times of my life have been listening to you preach.
Hey, man, I appreciate that, man. I really do appreciate that. I'm not mocking the mother's board. I love the mother's board. But I appreciate that, my brother. And you actually came to my church and you preached a good sermon too. People really enjoyed you.
You're kind to say that. I think the best sermons are when we get our ego out of the way and just let God come through.
Yeah. Let that person who he called, as I heard earlier this week from Dr. E.L. Branch, what happened to the person that God called to preach? That's who God wants to say a word to, not a parrot or a symbol of anything else, but you uniquely yourself. And somebody's trying to call me right now. You got to be kidding. Look at that. Okay. Sorry, can't take any calls on the set. All right. So listen, so let's just talk a little bit more. How are things going in? We never talk about money. Stewardship. People, you know what people want me to talk about sometimes? They want me to talk about the stock market and how to understand stocks. Why do stocks go up and down? And why do bonds move? And interest rates and coupons and, I guess retirement planning and, dollar cost averaging, how to read ratios. I don't know, maybe some hot shots want to talk about options. And, I need to have also the conversation about private equity and venture capital, that kind of thing, So we're going to have to do that one segment. We're going to have to do that. All right.
That'll be fun. My dad grew up as an engineer. He was not a money guy. And I think I shared this with you. When I was 11, I was starting to get fascinated with this thing called the stock market. So I bought some stock with the money I'd made mowing lawns and raking leaves and shoveling snow back in Belleville, Illinois. And I was so smart. My stock I bought was named Atlas Mining. It went from 7 to 1.
Boy.
And I said, Dad, what's the deal? And he said, figure it out. He didn't tell me what to do. He said, go figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the more important thing is to give the people the tools to figure it out.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. So we'll do that, man. Hey, so did it ever come back? I mean, did you like go and get it?
Hey, that's a great question, and it leads me to a real simple answer: is when I sell something, I don't even watch it anymore. I don't even care.
Really? Dude, I have such buyer's remorse, dude. I'll be there.
It's like you own a house and you sell the house to somebody. You come back 5 years and go, God, look what they did to it. Doesn't matter. Not my house anymore.
Like later, huh?
Yeah, later.
The universe is sprinkled with stocks, man. I got to call this one guy. I think he's from Ghana or something like that. They have an exchange in Africa, right? I heard in China you could be a stockbroker just walking down the street and say, I'm a stockbroker. Is that true?
Could be, and it'd probably be better than some of the stockbrokers that we've seen in our lives.
The regulators.
But one thing, and then we'll get on to the real fun stuff. But I think a common misconception of people is when they buy like 100 shares of Atlas, or not of Atlas, of Apple or something like that, they think that money's going to Apple. No, they're buying that stock from somebody else. That money does not go to Apple. They did not invest in the company Apple. They bought somebody else's Apple stock because that person was ready to sell it. So, I mean, it's something as simple as that. And people, well, I just thought I put $1,000 into Apple. Nope.
Well, we'll have to explain that part too.
Okay.
All right, because I know there's some people are going like, what? Now, he's giving you a deeper dive really quick. I knew he was going to do it, but it's good stuff.
Curtis, that's right. When you and I did this, we were investing in private companies. So the money that we invested went to the company. Yeah.
Anyway. People don't know that, man. And so, but it's a part of the, right? The stewardship piece, right? And, we're not trying to, look, I'm not a whistleblower, by any means. I mean, I don't need to be, when it comes to the securities industry. That gorilla has to just be whatever that gorilla is, right?
Yeah.
However, when it comes to ethics, and those things, are the markets moral? There's a book out there called Are the Markets Moral? I'm sitting in class and I'm going in my head, nope. But they went on with the discussion. But anyway, we'll get back to that. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, we have something special for you today. There's a lot going on in the country, and, we do want to present ourselves as an educational format. I know we act silly. I know I do. Healy's pretty serious, but, sometimes I try to stay on the rails and, try to act like I got some sense. So anyway, what we're going to do is that we're going to queue up and discuss the sermon speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that was delivered to the audience at the Riverside Church in New York City on April the 4th, 1967, entitled Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence. So I hope if you enjoyed this, that you tell your friends about it, and let's try to, craft a discussion. If you have any questions, would like to jump in, I can see you, just jump on in. We did invite a few people, maybe they will, but I'm going to share my screen. And then for the next, a few moments, what's going to happen is that we're going to let you hear the man, Martin Jr., talk about what's going on in this country.
Curtis, if you don't mind, right before you cue it up, it's for me, it's particularly a poignant sermon to listen to because it was exactly 1 year to the day later that our world lost the physical presence of such a great man.
Remarkable. You couldn't draw that up in any temporal time plate. Right. Those things only happen on the scoreboard of eternity. So I hear you. Yeah. Wow. All right, let's cue it up and see what we got going. I'm editor today. I'm in trouble. All right, here we go. Oh, man.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I need not pause to say how very delighted I am to be here tonight, and how very delighted I am to see you expressing your concern about the issues that will be discussed tonight by turning out in such large numbers. I also want to say that I consider it a great honor to share this program with Dr. Bennett, Dr. Comminger, and Rabbi Heschel, some of the distinguished leaders and personalities of our nation. And of course, it's always good to come back to Riverside Church. Over the last 8 years, I have had the privilege of preaching here almost every year in that period. It is always a rich and rewarding experience to come to this great church and this great pulpit. I come to this magnificent house of worship tonight because my conscience leaves me no other choice. I join you in this meeting because I am in deepest agreement with the aims and work of the organization which has brought us together, clergy and laymen concerned about Vietnam. The recent statements of your executive committee are the sentiments of my own heart. I found myself in full accord when I read its opening line. A time comes when silence is betrayal. That time has come for us in relation to Vietnam. The truth of these words is beyond doubt, but the mission to which they call us is a most difficult one. Even when pressed by the demands of inner truth, men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war. Nor does the human spirit move without great difficulty against all the apathy of conformist thought within one's own bosom and in the surrounding world. Moreover, when the issues at hand seem as perplexing as they often do, in the case of this dreadful conflict, we are always on the verge of being mesmerized by uncertainty. But we must move on. Some of us who have already begun to break the silence of the night have found that the calling to speak is often a vocation of agony. But we must speak. We must speak with all the humility that is appropriate to our limited vision. But we must speak. And we must rejoice as well, for surely this is the first time in our nation's history that a significant number of its religious leaders have chosen to move beyond the prophesying of smooth patriotism to the high grounds of a firm dissent based upon the mandates of conscience and the reading of history. Perhaps a new spirit is rising among us. If it is, let us trace its movements and pray that our own inner being may be sensitive to its guidance. For we are deeply in need of a new way beyond the darkness that seems so close around. Over the past 2 years, as I have moved to break the betrayal of my own silences and to speak from the burnings of my own heart, as I have called for radical departures from the destruction of Vietnam, Many persons have questioned me about the wisdom of my path. At the heart of their concerns is where it has often loomed and large and loud. Why are you speaking about the war, Dr. King? Why are you joining the voices of dissent? Peace and civil rights don't mix, they say. Aren't you hurting the cause of your people, they ask. And when I hear them, though I often understand the source of their concern, I'm nevertheless greatly saddened. Such questions mean that the inquirers have not really known me, my commitment or my calling. Indeed, their questions suggest that they do not know the world in which they live. In the light of such tragic misunderstanding, I deem it of signal importance to try to state clearly, and I trust concisely, while I believe that the path from Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, a church in Montgomery, Alabama, where I began my pastorate, leads clearly to this sanctuary tonight. I come to this platform tonight to make a passionate plea to my beloved nation. This speech is not addressed to Hanoi or to the National Liberation Front. It is not addressed to China or to Russia. Nor is it an attempt to overlook the ambiguity of the total situation and the need for a collective solution to the tragedy of Vietnam. Neither is it an attempt to make North Vietnam or the National Liberation Front paragons of virtue, not to overlook the role they must play in the successful resolution of the problem. While they both may have justifiable reasons to be suspicious of the good faith of the United States, life and history give eloquent testimony to the fact that conflicts are never resolved without trustful give and take on both sides. Tonight, however, I wish not to speak with Hanoi and the National Liberation Front, but rather to my fellow Americans. Since I am a preacher by calling, I suppose it is not surprising that I have 7 major reasons for bringing Vietnam into the field of my moral vision. That is, at the outset, a very obvious and almost facile connection between the war in Vietnam and the struggle I and others have been waging in America. A few years ago, there was a shining moment in that struggle. It seemed as if there was a real promise of hope for the poor, both black and white, through the poverty program. There were experiments, hopes, new beginnings. Then came the build-up in Vietnam. And I watched this program broken and eviscerated, as if it was some idle political plaything of a society gone mad on war. I knew that America would never invest the necessary funds or energies in rehabilitation of its poor, so long as adventures like Vietnam continued to draw men and skills and money, like some demonic destructive suction tube. So I was increasingly compelled to see the war as an enemy of the poor and to attack it as such. Perhaps a more tragic recognition of reality took place, and it became clear to me that the war was doing far more than devastating the hopes of the poor at home. It was sending their sons and their brothers and their husbands to fight and to die in extraordinarily high proportions relative to the rest of the population. We were taking the black young men who had been crippled by our society and sending them 8,000 miles to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Holland. So we have been repeatedly faced with the cruel irony, watching Negro and white boys on TV screens and They kill and die together for a nation that has been unable to seat them together in the same stew. So we watch them in brutal solidarity, burning the huts of a poor village. But we realize that they would hardly live on the same block in Chicago. I cannot be silent in the face of such cruel manipulation of the poor. My third reason moves to an even deeper level of awareness, for it grows out of my experience in the ghettos of the North over the last 3 years, especially the last 3 summers. As I have walked among the desperate, rejected, and angry young men, I have told them that Molotov cocktails and rifles would not solve their problems. I have tried to offer them my deepest compassion while maintaining my conviction that social change comes most meaningfully through nonviolent action. But they asked, and rightly so, what about Vietnam? They asked if our own nation wasn't using massive doses of violence to solve its problem, to bring about the changes it wanted. Their questions hit home, and I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghetto without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government. For the sake of those boys, for the sake of this government, for the sake of the hundreds of thousands trembling under our violence, I cannot be silent. For those who ask the question, are you a civil rights leader? And thereby mean to exclude me from the movement to peace. I have this further answer. In 1957, when a group of us formed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, we chose as our motto to save the soul of America. We were convinced that we could not limit our vision to certain rights for black people, but instead affirm the conviction that America would never be free or saved from itself until the descendants of its slaves were loosed completely from the shackles they still wear. In a way, we were agreeing with Langston Hughes, that black bard of Harlem, who had written earlier, oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be. Now it should be incandescently clear that no one who has any concern for the integrity and life of America today can ignore the present war. If America's soul becomes totally plausible, part of the autopsy must read Vietnam. It can never be saved so long as it destroys the deepest hopes of men the world over. So it is that those of us who are yet determined that America will be are led down the path of protest and dissent, working for the health of our land. As if the weight of such a commitment to the life and health of America were not enough, another burden of responsibility was placed upon me in 1954. And I cannot forget that the Nobel Peace Prize was also a commission to work harder than I had ever worked before for the brotherhood of man. This is a calling that takes me beyond national allegiances. But even if it were not present, I would yet have to live with the meaning of my commitment to the ministry of Jesus Christ. To me, the relationship of this ministry to the making of peace is so obvious that I sometimes marvel at those who ask me why I'm speaking against it. Could it be that they do not know that the good news was meant for all men, for communists and capitalists, for their children and ours, for black and for white, for revolutionary and conservative? And they've forgotten that my ministry is in obedience to the one who loved his enemies so fully that he died for them, what then can I say to the Viet Cong, or to Castro, or to Mao as a faithful minister of this one? And I threatened them with death. Must I not share with them my life? Finally, as I tried to explain to you and for myself the road that leads from Montgomery to this place, I would have offered all that was most valid if I simply said that I must be true to my conviction, that I share with all men the calling to be a son of the living God. Beyond the calling of race or nation or creed is this vocation of sonship and brotherhood, because I believe that the Father is deeply concerned, especially for his suffering and helpless and outcast children. I come tonight to speak for them. This I believe to be the privilege and the burden of all of us who deem ourselves bound by allegiances and loyalties, which are broader and deeper than nationalism, and which go beyond our nation's self-defined goals and positions. We are called to speak for the weak, for the voiceless, for the victims of our nation, for those it calls enemy. For no document from human hands can make these humans any less our brothers. And as I ponder the madness of Vietnam, and search within myself for ways to understand and respond in compassion, my mind goes constantly to the people of that peninsula. I speak now not of the soldiers of each side, not of the ideologies of the Liberation Front, not of the Hunter side gone, but simply of the people who have been living under the curse of war for almost 3 continuous decades now. I think of them too, because it is.
All right, we're back here on Momentum, right? And so we want to, we're going to play a little bit more of this, but I want to talk about this some, because we're supposed to have some kind of discussion, right?
Right.
So here's the burning question. So as an African American, right, it might be obvious why a king is so important to my culture. But as a white man of Irish descent, how important would a king be to your culture?
King was for my culture. We didn't need our own king. We had king. King spoke for the Irish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were downtrodden. We did not have the easy to note physical difference. We were we were the white slaves. Irish stay off the grass. I was watching this, and I thank you for reminding me. I hadn't listened to this incredible sermon for a while. He was critical that we have that, and the one thing that I think is often overlooked is that no one hates war more than the professional military person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're the ones that that shoot the bullets, that are hit by the bullets. They have to write the letters. The officers write the letters to the mothers, to the fathers, to the parents, to the kids, to the wife, to the husband. They have them written to their wives, husbands, etc. And there's nothing worse than going to war. And the reason you go to war is because the politicians can't get their own, egos out of the way. Yes, there's a host of reasons. Vietnam just irks the heck out of me. Jim Stockdale, Admiral Stockdale, the guy that everybody remembers for his "Who am I? What am I doing here?" speech during the vice presidential debate, was shot down in Vietnam. He was ended up getting the Medal of Honor for his actions there. He was flying an A4 in the Gulf of Tonkin when purportedly USS Turner Joy was attacked by enemy forces. Mm-hmm. So there were no other ships there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We need King.
Yeah.
And we need King today.
Yeah, we do. I know that your military background, and as I was queuing this up, right, and how it came to me, it was one of it was some research I kind of did on my own. I was taking this online class at Harvard, right? Listen, guys, let me tell y'all something right now. I took 2 classes this summer, one from MIT and one from Harvard University, right? And I have certificates in that, and it goes on my resume, right? So, hey, look, when we're talking about what was King's platform all about, it was about work. This guy was a worker, right? Boston University. He was going to Boston University as a Black man when that was not, it was hardly thought of, but he was, because of his work ethic, so it's not like he was just so gifted, and we know he was gifted, so I'm just saying that, take the opportunity to put something different in your mental repertoire. And I'm reaching out to all my brothers and sisters, Black, white, brown, yellow, whoever, what you are. Paideia means an informed populace. An informed populace is a better populace, right? And then what that means is that we don't have the kind of chaos that we have in our country that's going on right now. We have an uninformed president who is misunderstood, and he misunderstands, right? And so we need to move him through. Anyway, I didn't want to go on that little tangent, but I made some notes. I want to get back to it, Healy, because at some point in the speech, King begins to rock the house. Now, and you can chime in on this. They said that this was his most controversial speech, that after this right here is when he became a threat to the whole global system. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that really, that was it. That was the demarcation. He was no longer going to be anybody's, pardon my language, he's going to be nobody's boy.
Yeah.
When he mentioned a couple of minutes before you took it off in 57 with the Southern Baptist Leadership Council was not for Black Americans. It was for Americans. What he revealed in this speech was the cost of war was not being borne equally. When I was listening to it, I was thinking back to
yes,
Pheidippides at Marathon about the Spartans and the others at the gates of hell at Thermopylae, gates of fire, and how Darius's troops and Xerxes' troops were basically slaves that were fighting, and they didn't fight with the same intensity. So to me, to watch the struggle that King went through, and to watch the incredible bravery of those that were fighting in this war that weren't really being represented. is
Mhm.
it's beyond. I mean, it's servant leadership to a level that is just unbelievable. That the number of young men who put their lives on the line for a country, as he said, they were fighting for more freedom for the Vietnamese than they had back in West Georgia.
Yes. Right. Right. He makes claim to that. He talks about young boys that fight alongside each other and burn villages in Hanoi and Cambodia, right? However, when they come back home, they don't even know each other in the city of Detroit. They don't even live near each other. There is no affiliation. There is no relationship. I want to bring out one of his quotes. It's just so many in here. Um, um, so we have been repeatedly faced with the cruel irony of watching Negro and white boys on TV screens as they kill and die together for a nation that has been unable to seat them together in the same schools. So we watch them in brutal solidarity burning the huts of a poor village, but we realized they would never live on the same block in Detroit. And this is what we just spoke towards. You got a bit more specific, to it. Okay, so let's speed up to about
Minute 37 or so.
No, it's got a little further than that because I want to get to. So I started getting excited because I'm a preacher, right? And so I know the mechanics of it, and so he's been like kind of going along, and man, right through here, he's going to get it charged up. So let me the editing booth. Yes, hi, how's it going? All right, hold on a second, man. All right, let's see here, right around. Oop, it's getting hot. The thermometer is moving. Okay, I'll go right about there. All right, so let me go back here and let's cue this up, hopefully for our audience. All right, and let me share my screen. Yes. Let's rock and roll.
In the hope that such action will create the atmosphere for negotiation. 3, take immediate steps to prevent other battlegrounds in Southeast Asia by curtailing our military buildup in Thailand and our interference in Laos. 4, realistically accept the fact that the National Liberation Front has substantial support in South Vietnam, must thereby play a role in any meaningful negotiations and any future Vietnam government. 5, set a date that we will remove all foreign troops from Vietnam in accordance with the 1954 Geneva Agreement. Part around. Ongoing commitment might well express itself in an offer to grant asylum to any Vietnamese who fears for his life under the new regime, which included the Liberation Front. Then we must make what reparations we can for the damage we have done. We must provide the medical aid that is badly needed, making it available in this country if necessary. Meanwhile, we in the churches and synagogues have a continuing task while we urge our government to disengage itself from a disgraceful commitment. We must continue to raise our voices and our lives. If our nation persists in its perverse ways in Vietnam, we must be prepared to match actions with words by seeking out every creative method of protest possible. As we counsel young men concerning military service, We must clarify for them our nation's role in Vietnam and challenge them with the alternative of conscientious objection. I'm pleased to say that this is the path now chosen by more than 70 students at my own alma mater, Morehouse College. To all who find the American course in Vietnam a dishonorable and unjust one. Moreover, I would encourage all ministers of draft aid to give up their ministerial exemptions and seek status as conscientious objectors. These are the times for real choices and not false ones. We are at the moment when our lives must be placed on the line if our nation is to survive its own falling. Every man of humane convictions must decide on the protest that best suits his conviction, but we must all protest. Now there is something seductively tempting about stopping them and sending us all off on what in some circles has become a popular crusade against the war in Vietnam. I say we must enter that struggle, but I wish to go on now to say something even more disturbing. The war in Vietnam is but a symptom of a far deeper malady within the American spirit. If we ignore this sobering reality, we will find ourselves organizing clergy and laymen concerned committees for the next generation. They will be concerned about Guatemala and Peru. They will be concerned about Thailand and Cambodia. They will be concerned about Mozambique and South. We will be marching for these and a dozen other names and attending rallies without end, unless there is a significant and profound change in American life and policy. Such thoughts take us beyond Vietnam, but not beyond our calling as sons of the living God. In 1957, a sensitive American official overseas said that it seemed to him that our nation was on the wrong side of a world revolution. During the past 10 years, we have seen emerge a pattern of suppression, which is now justified by the presence of U.S. military advisors in Venezuela. This need to maintain social stability for our investments accounts for the counter-revolutionary action of American forces in Guatemala. It tells why American helicopters are being used against guerrillas in Cambodia, why American napalm and Green Beret forces have already been active against rebels in Peru. It is with such activity in mind that the words of the late John F. Kennedy come back to haunt us. 5 years ago, he said, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." Explain trust of American intentions now, in Hanoi are the men who led the nation to independence against the Japanese and the French, the men who sought membership in us to explain this lack of confidence in Western words, and especially their distrust of American intentions now. In Hanoi are the men who led the nation to independence against the Japanese and the French, the men who sought membership in the French Commonwealth and were betrayed by the weakness of Paris and the willfulness of the colonial armies. It was they who led a second struggle against French domination at tremendous cost, then were persuaded to give up the land they controlled between the 13th and 17th parallel as a temporary measure at Geneva. After 1954, they watched us conspire with DM to prevent elections which could have surely brought Ho Chi Minh to power over the united Vietnam. They realized they had been betrayed again, and we asked why they do not leap to negotiate. These things must be remembered. Also, it must be clear that the leaders of Hanoi considered the presence of American troops in support of the Diem regime to have been the initial military breach of the Geneva Agreement concerning foreign troops. They remind us that they did not begin to send troops in large numbers and even supplies to the South until American forces had moved into the tens of thousands. And Nora remembers how our leaders refused to tell us the truth about the earlier North Vietnamese overtures for peace, how the president claimed that none existed when they had clearly been made. Ho Chi Minh has watched as America has spoken peace and built up its forces. And now he has surely heard the increasing international rumors of American plans for an invasion of the North. He knows the bombing and shelling and mining we are doing a part of traditional pre-invasion strategy. Perhaps only his sense of humor and of irony can save him when he hears the most powerful nation of the world speaking of aggression as it drops thousands of bombs on a poor, weak nation more than 8,000 miles away from its shores. At this point, I should make it clear that while I have tried in these last few minutes to give a voice to the voiceless in Vietnam, to understand the arguments of those who are called enemy, I am as deeply concerned about our own troops there as anything else. For it occurs to me that what we are submitting them to in Vietnam is not simply the brutalizing process that goes on in any war where armies face each other and seek to destroy. We are adding cynicism to the process of death, for they must know after the short period there that none of the things we claim to be fighting for are really involved. Before long, they must know that their government has sent them into a struggle among Vietnamese. The more sophisticated surely realize that we are on the side of the wealthy and the secure while we create a hell for the poor. Somehow this madness must cease. We must stop now. I speak as a child of God and brother to the suffering poor of Vietnam. I speak for those whose land is being laid waste, whose homes are being destroyed, whose culture is being subverted. I speak for the poor of America, who are paying the double price of smashed hopes at home, death and corruption in Vietnam. I speak as a citizen of the world, for the world as it stands aghast at the path we have taken. I speak as one who loves America, to the leaders of our own nation. The great initiative in this war is ours. The initiative to stop it must be ours. This is a message of the great Buddhist leaders of Vietnam. Recently, one of them wrote these words, and I quote, "Each day the war goes on, the hatred increases in the heart of the Vietnamese, and in the hearts of those of humanitarian instinct. The Americans are forcing even their friends into becoming their enemies. It is curious that the Americans, who calculate so carefully on the possibilities of military victory, not realize that in the process they incurring deep psychological and political defeat. The image of America will never again be the image of revolution, freedom, and democracy, but the image of violence and militarism, unquote. We continue, there will be no doubt in my mind and in the mind of the world that we have no honorable intentions in Vietnam. We do not stop our war against the people of Vietnam immediately. The world will be left with no other alternative than to see this as some horrible, clumsy.
All right. All right, so we've gotten a good dose of King's speech. I just want to bring out one interesting point, Pepper, and that is that King quotes and says, this business of burning human beings with napalm, of filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate into veins of people normally humane, of sending men home from dark and bloody battlefields, physically handicapped and psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. A great little tidbit is that in 1967, the military budget was $75.45 billion, which was a 9.06% of GDP. In 2019, the budget was $648 billion and 3.16% of GDP. So I thought about you when I was looking and trying to wrangle those numbers. And so as we get ready to close out today, what more thoughts do you have on the Beyond Vietnam? And don't forget to take your mute off your trusted laptop there before you speak.
Although my comments would probably make more sense if I kept the mute button on. I'll make a couple analogies, and I appreciate your numbers there, because the absolute numbers are considerably larger, but the relative numbers, 9% down to 3%, is also pretty telling on the growth of our economy. A couple things come to mind. One, I was reading, and you and I read everything we can, and we look for meaning in many things, and sometimes we find it, sometimes we don't. There's a thing called Triffin's Dilemma, which is having a nation that has a world reserve currency, their responsibility to the world in their economic policy, knowing that policy is going to have an impact beyond the impact on their host nation. So what's your responsibility as the person that is the leader of the world with currency? And I would argue that the United States is the leader in the world should be the leader in the world of moral currency. And when we violate that and we act in our own short-term best interest, it hurts us long-term. So using that, the second thing is, there's a story, I think we might have talked about it before. A group of MBA students are told to analyze this race car company that's having to make a decision on whether or not to enter their car in this race. If they do, and the temperature is going to be really cold that day, and they know that the cars had a tendency to maybe break down in bad weather, but if they win the race, the company's going to be phenomenal. So they're going, oh, what the heck? Let's race it. Well, what people realize later is all the numbers that are put in there are the numbers that NASA was looking at and deciding whether or not to launch Challenger. And the decision was made, oh, what the heck? Let's launch it. It'll be really great if it works. Well, we know that Dick Scobie, others on that flight died because of the hubris of engineers and others that didn't want to lose that. Now, what it comes down to me then is Skin in the game.
Yeah.
You know, we as finance people for too long worried about shareholder rights, not stakeholder rights. Shareholders are part of the stakeholders, but only a part. So it's skin in the game until the politicians have skin in the game. And skin in the game, I'm sorry, being reelected is not skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Skin in the game is having true risk that they bear themselves. Am I willing to be a servant leader? Am I willing to pick up the sign and march in that parade? Am I willing to give a speech in front of people that don't agree with me and give that speech because I know I have to give that speech? Am I willing to not be reelected by telling what I believe is true?
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's the real lesson here. Am I a stakeholder? Am I acting like a stakeholder? What am I willing to die for? What's my God?
Yeah. I think that's excellent. And Jesus says it better, if you call me brother, who will give his life, for his brother. And King, shows us, that, people like him, people like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, right. They show us, Malcolm X, Gandhi, they show us the best of, Kennedy. He quotes, Kennedy in this sermon, and he gets a rousing applause, and it will be good, one day to get Kennedy's inaugural address and listen to it and put it on and and talk about it, because if you have never had an opportunity to listen to his inaugural address, it was one for the ages.
Yeah, just right around 15 minutes.
Yeah, very good inaugural address. He stayed away, from a lot of political platforms, and even stayed away from a lot of religious platforms, even though he was a devout Catholic.
Yeah.
He found a way to pull America into the center. And I think that's why he became such a threat, so.
Another great one is Lincoln's second inaugural address.
We'll have to throw that one out there.
That is, Lincoln was a phenomenal writer. He thought he crafted a sermon every time he spoke. And you're probably thinking to me right now, bring it home, Ely. So I'm done.
Yeah, man, it's all fun, man. You start thinking about, that's a topic for discussion, which means that we're going to have to get a former president, on this show so we can talk to him. So it's some out there. So I guess it's time to make that call.
Which one do we want?
I don't know, anyone, Bush, Obama, Jimmy Carter, they're all, Gerald Ford, isn't he still alive?
I think he is. And President Clinton.
Yeah, Bill Clinton, you're closer to him. You sent me a picture, or you took a picture with him.
I'm sure he's
in Arkansas. Quit playing.
I doubt that he has shown that picture to anybody. I've shown it to many.
Dude, anyway, call your guy in Arkansas, Whit, and say, hey, man, look, let's get on the horn. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's get out there, man. That's what this is all about anyway. Right. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, we just enjoyed having you with us so much today, and we were glad. We hope that we didn't, bore the journalistic protocol or anything like that. But if we had to pick somebody to put on and try to analyze his speech, it would be King. So again, God bless you. God keep you. Thank you for joining us today on Momentum, on Stewardship Idea. We'll be with you next week with our guests. Look out for our new flyer, and we're looking forward to that. All right. Peace. Have a great one. We love you. Peace out.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you too.
Love you.